Good evening, everybody. You are now on board the Paranormal Express.
Have a look around. Take a seat. Wander about.
Hope you're interested in a few ghost stories this evening. Bit of the paranormal, bit of the mythological, bit of the just the whole
Folklore.
occult. We're just here interested in some stories. So, yes, and basically, this is our first time running this show, so we're happy you guys are here with us today. Basically, we're just going to get an idea of how do we start this? How do we start the Paranormal Express? Well, I think one of the best ways, too, is why not talk about a Paranormal Express or two or several? We have a few trainee ghost stories. Ghost stories about trains coming up.
Trainee ghost stories, yeah.
Yeah, train-like, as well as other vehicles and things like that.
Also, ghost training. To practice being a ghost.
Oh, dude,
so we're not bad
great.
at it.
We should absolutely do that. Ghost Class 101. Ghost Class 101.
Being a ghost.
So, everybody, I think it's a good way to start is to get to know your the host here. So I'm going to start with Jake here. Just a few things to kind of hit some points to get an idea. So, do you have any paranormal experiences of your own?
No, I don't think I do. Nothing I can recall, at least.
Mm-hmm.
Every time that I've had like one of those instances where I've been in my room at night and it's been dark and I've been freaked out by something, I usually look at it for a minute and I'm like, oh, okay, it's this thing in my room.
Yeah, like the classic coat on the hanger
Yes,
in the
that's
corner.
basically what it was.
Just looks like a shadow figure or something. Yeah. I would say I'm around the same way. I did have this time when I was a kid where a fan in another room seemed to move and work without power, because usually power on something electronic has a red indicator saying it has power and it's on. That wasn't there, but that's such a trivial thing. Mm-hmm. Besides that, I think I'm just in my head all the time. And I remember watching tons of Ghost Adventures, then walking home from my friend's house after that and just hearing weird sounds and just always thinking, oh, there's probably something there, but I don't know what. So, also, I'm at the disposition that I was at one point very spiritual, Christian and everything. So I didn't believe ghosts were real because I was like, well, if you're under the understanding once you die, you're judged by God, there's no way you could just be lost on Earth because he's omnipotent and he can see all and know all.
Unless there's something like purgatory.
Yes, yeah.
Where
well, that's
could
the
be,
thing.
like, trapped on
I
Earth.
could never get into that because I was just like...
I remember my dad saying when I was a kid, which he may have meant this as like a joke or something, but he used to say that the house is haunted and that like he sees demons and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It always goes to... Yeah, like, and that was how I was, being a Christian. I was like, there aren't ghosts of innocent people. There are just demons and trickster things, beings, bad things that are from Satan to scare you and make you...
You know demons aren't Christian, though, right?
Well, yeah.
The word demon isn't.
Yeah, of course not.
It comes from Greek.
Yeah. What doesn't come from Greek?
Yeah.
But yeah, no, just the idea of a satanic and even Satan itself is a whole nother story.
Yes.
And that's kind of like what we're going to get into in this show. We're introducing ghostly things, but it's not just about ghosts. I really like the idea of pulling back the veil on the idea of a lot of syncretized things. I didn't know that word until you started talking about that kind of stuff. Yeah. Because you would talk about how, well, this thing is actually originate here. It just got...
What, like how Pan and Hermes are actually the same like deity, or at least they were at one point. Mm-hmm. Hermes was probably a epithet for Pan. That was something like that.
Yeah.
And like the most famous syncretized thing is you know who Selene and Helios are, right? The old Greek sun and moon gods.
Yeah, yeah.
Like you've at least heard of them.
Yeah.
You know they were a thing at least. They were syncretized into Apollo and Artemis. Forgot the name for a second.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, and it's just like also like Christianity and other religions like to pull a lot of symbolism and ideas from other...
Like Aphrodite being equated to Mary.
Yeah, I
Which
mean,
I think is funny.
The easiest example as well is the cross in Christianity was easily syncretized because it had no spiritual value until Jesus died on it.
Yeah.
It was crucified.
It was just a form of torture and
execution.
execution.
It was just a way to display those things because that was a way to teach a lesson. You know,
Mhm.
you didn't have the news, you didn't have written articles about things. You just displayed a bad person to people. So,
Yep. I mean, even that happens into the Middle Ages
yeah.
with like it's called sympathetic magic.
Mhm.
It's like an item that resembles something is used for that thing. So like if a flower looks like a heart, it's used for heart problems. That's essentially what that is.
Okay, interesting.
But they would use that with like a thief's hand would be used to protect someone's house from thievery.
Oh, okay. Yeah, like a charm.
Mm-hmm.
But it's representative.
Also, they
of-
would drink their blood for some reason.
Oh, that's a fun thing.
I don't
that
remember
doesn't
why,
exist
though.
anymore. But yeah. Okay. Then
These are executed people, not just random thieves and people. These are
course.
people who have been like hung, public hangings and public executions.
So
But yeah,
awesome. See, now you guys already have a kind of an eye into like what we're gonna try to touch upon in these things, while also keeping it in themes and ideas, especially during seasonal things and holidays and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So we're just gonna have a lot of fun with it. So let's see. I think the next thing to ask is, what's your favorite paranormal being? Like thing. It could be a ghost, goblin, ghoul, whatever.
paranormal, like, okay,
And I don't even care if it's
Mythology.
completely fictional thing. Like I guess a zombie, but
And-
even that like technically still has grounds to
I
like.
think in like generic things, I like satyrs a lot and stuff
Okay.
like that. But recently, I've also really liked goblins.
Mhm.
Sometimes I like to combine them too. I've seen like in fantasy, like as a generic overall thing that you're gonna find in a lot of different forms of folklore throughout different cultures and stuff. It would probably be the satyr because like satyrs go from, of course, I mean satyr is Greek. It's the Greek term, and it's not. When you think of like the goat people,
Mhm.
that's actually fawns, which they were syncretized together when the
Okay.
Romans took over, which is why satyrs are now half goat men, because they were originally just men with like some horse features sometimes,
Okay.
and sometimes not, and yeah, that's basically what they were. There's more about them as well, but what I really like is that there's other beings like there's one thing called like Herne the Hunter, which is it's a supernatural being from England, which resembles a satyr, but it's
Okay.
not goat. It's like deer stuff, deer
Yeah.
antlers and stuff.
Like what?
And he is
what
not a nice guy.
maybe like it's involved with what was commonly their quarrel or whatever they hunted. So like, yeah, let's represent deer hunting.
Maybe,
with a
but Herne the
deer.
Hunter is he protects like a weird little garden somewhere in England.
Okay. Interesting.
Yeah, he's very interesting. And he's malevolent. He does not like people.
Okay.
Yes.
Made sense.
Satyrs are typically harmless.
Okay. Interesting.
Sometimes they will do the odd attack.
Mm-hmm. I'll definitely say my favorite paranormal being is the Dullahan from Irish folklore. It's almost like their version of some kind of Grim Reaper or collector of souls, the one who
Yeah.
visits at the
The
last
word you're looking for
hole.
is psychopomp, I think.
Is that really a thing?
Psychopomp?
Yeah.
Psychopomp is like the Grim Reaper, yeah. They take souls and they ferry them to the underworld.
I had no idea. That's such a weird name.
It's a Greek thing.
Sounds like a hardcore band. Just
Yes, I love
psychopomp.
that. Actually, you know what? I'm changing my my previous folklore thing. I do like satyrs a lot, but psychopomps are my favorite thing.
Yeah.
In general,
Because
I love psychopomps.
I don't think there's an uninterest.
Hermes is a psychopomp.
Yeah, I don't think there's an uninteresting version of them. They're always really cool.
Yes, Karen,
Because-
who is like big time the Grim Reaper, basically, the ferryman on the River Styx. He's a psychopomp. Yeah, I didn't know headless people.
Well, sorry for the interruption for that, folks. You know, busy train we have going on here. What I was in the middle of saying, I believe.
About the
Yes,
Dullahan?
yeah, we were on the Dullahan note. Yeah,
Yeah.
basically, yes. Trying to set the mood a little bit more with the lights. So yes, it's most typically, if you've never heard the term the Dullahan used before, which is like the original like Irish idea. It's basically like the headless horseman. It's a type of fae that originates from Irish folklore. So it's interesting that it counts as the fae as like a fairy kind
The
of.
fae are very vague in Celtic mythology.
Yeah.
They are so sporadic. They are everything. They're basically gods.
Yeah,
they are deities.
Fae is almost like a blanket term for anything that's extraordinary or just like a being that is paranormal, a being that is not a human that is observed as human. And of course, it has this classical look of a headless horseman or a headless. I like the idea of the carriage driver one. That actually has a lot more because there's a carriage driver with like just like either flames or ghostly mist that just covers the land.
Is that part of the reason why you like Ghost Rider too?
Probably, yeah. Even though I definitely liked Ghost Rider before I knew what a Dullahan was.
But yeah, because you probably saw that before you knew what a Dullahan was.
Yeah.
I mean, Ghost Rider's just cool in general, but also that has folklore behind it too.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Which is cool. It's Odin.
Oh wow,
Kinda.
I had no idea. But that's definitely my favorite. Of course,
Odin.
like the American Tale, The Legend of Sleepy Hollow, and everything like that, which has that beautiful Johnny Depp performance in it.
The one thing I was going to say about the Headless Horseman, he's actually, I think, a Hessian, which were like mercenaries. I could be very wrong about this because I haven't looked up stuff about him in a very long time, since I found that like Skyrim Easter egg about it a long time ago. But yeah, from what I remember, he was like a Hessian swordsman, which is, or that's what he's supposed to be, which is it's a German, what's the mercenary? That's what they are. They're mercenaries.
Yeah.
That's all I was going to say about that.
There's also the tale of Sir Gawain and the Green Knight, the 14th century poem that has a giant knight that is beheaded by Gawain.
Yeah.
And then the Green Knight himself lifts up his own head up with one hand and rides from the hall, which actually I think is featured in that movie, that A24 film that was just released called The Green Knight.
Yeah.
I think
it should be that same story.
And I heard it's really good, but that's a, oh no, I'm slipping into my yeah. So that's a good start. So we've already gotten an idea from one of your favorite creatures that you're very much into mythology.
Yeah.
And things like that.
And the psychopomp as well, which also is a very mythological motif.
Yeah. I just love that name, psychopomp.
Yeah, it's great.
Like, is that spelt like psycho?
Yeah, it is.
Like
I'll type it out because I want to look at it as well. But it's
literally like psycho and then P-U-M-P.
Yeah, PSYCHO POMP.
That must be just broken down from its original.
No
word.
internet.
Oh, lovely. I can do that here.
Why do you not have internet anymore?
I don't know. Maybe it's because it went to sleep.
We must be in a dead zone on this train.
Yeah,
exactly. Dead zone.
It's so nice that the modern age has added the capacity to have Wi-Fi on vehicles nowadays, but
being on a
very spotty,
Well, I mean, we are on a ghost train.
Yes.
Which could be a segue into our actual topic.
Yeah. Been here for a very, very, very long time. It's P-O-M-P, psychopomp.
Oh yeah, sorry, did I not say that? That's what I typed.
Yeah, that's why I was like, is it P-U-M-P? Like it
no, not pump.
The psycho out.
Pomp,
yeah.
like pompous.
The Japanese breakfast. Oh, it's an album. Okay. Sorry, just doing a quick research into the Necronomicon about this. From the Greek words, guide of souls. Oh yeah. Yeah.
There's a few in Greek mythology. There's quite a few.
That's a really cool idea. But yes, that will bring us into,
the idea of the psychopomp actually ties into the ghost trains, though.
Yeah, definitely, because...
And ghosts.
I mean...
What do they call them? On the Wikipedia? The Wikipedia page for it, anyway. There was, it was for all vehicles or whatever. Phantom vehicles or something like that.
Oh, yeah. Phantom vehicles, yeah. Which are basically, I mean, as simple as the name says, it's just a vehicle that has ghostly traits to it, whether it be ethereal or non-corporeal,
Yep.
or it actually just be a haunted but physical entity within it. Like, vehicles that operate no visible driver, or driving down abandoned roads with no like end, or
What about the ones that you see on the road and there's just a dog driving it?
that is paranormal, but it's not spiritually paranormal. It's
Yeah.
not otherworldly.
What if it's a ghost dog?
Ghost. Now that would be a twist. That is something I'd be willing to see. But yeah, so that's what today's episode's basically going to be about. We are called the Paranormal. We are on the Paranormal Express. So why not dive a little bit into some history of some phantom vehicles, as they're called, which most of our information is going to be pulled from ghost lore, which is just the term for the genre of folklore that involves ghosts and paranormal activity. So, what would you like to go through first?
I could. Do you want me to? Well, the first thing I have up here is a. It's a little ghost story. I don't know if it's actually historical or not, because I haven't read through it yet. I'm assuming it's a ghost story from Alberta, Canada.
Ooh, I always wanted to go to Alberta.
Do you want me to read through that?
Yes, go
a little
ahead. Why not?
Okay. I was a railway fireman back in those days, working on the CPR line in Alberta. I did a hard day's work and earned me a fair wage. I was young then, and my pretty little bride was just setting up housekeeping in the little cottage that was all we could afford. Life was good, and I thought everything would continue rolling along that way. Then came the fateful day in May of 1908. I was working nights that month, and my buddy, Tuhei, was the engineer. We were about 3 kilometers out of Medicine Hat when a blazing light appeared in front of the engine. It was another train on a collision course with us. Tuhei yelled at me to jump, but there was no time. The light was right on top of us. I thought we were dead. Then the oncoming train veered off to the right and ran past us, its whistle blowing and the passengers staring at us through the windows. But there was only a single track in this stretch of the hills, and it was the one we were on. I looked over at the shrieking, rumbling ghost train and saw that the wheels were not touching the ground. Well, we were mighty shocked by the incident. Tuhei decided to take some time off from engineering and began working in the yard, but I kept working the night shift as the fireman, not wanting some ghost train to drive me away, a job I enjoyed. A few weeks later, I was stoking the fire for an engineer named Nicholson when we heard the shrill whistle blast through the calm night. We were on the same single track just outside of Medicine Hat, and the brilliant light of the ghost train burst out of nowhere, blinding us. Nicholson gave a shout of terror, and I thought my heart would stop. As before, the ghost train veered off to the right at the last possible second. I saw it race past us on the tracks that did not exist, its passengers staring curiously at Nicholson and I out of the windows. That did it. I wasn't about to go back on the tracks after that. I did yard work for the rest of the month, May and a few weeks in June. Finally, I decided that enough was enough, and I gritted my teeth and resumed my role as fireman. I was firing up the engine in the yard one evening in early June when the report of an accident came in. The Spokane Flyer and the Lethbridge passenger train had a head-on collision on the single track 3 kilometers south of Medicine Hat, on the exact spot where the ghost train had appeared. The Lethbridge locomotive had derailed, and its baggage car was destroyed. 7 people were killed in that accident, including 2 engineers. One was my buddy Tuhei, and the other was Nicholson. That's it. That is a story called Ghost Train, an Alberta ghost story retold by S.E. Schlosser.
Wow, very interesting.
Yeah. But
so you don't have any like idea if it was actually like an historical thing or?
No. I mean, I could look up. Well, no, I can't actually. You could look up Medicine Hat because I'm assuming that's a town somewhere in Alberta.
Yeah, a very interesting town name. But
Yes,
I'm not
yes,
going to question what
it caught me off guard when I first read it.
Yeah. So, now following that story, before we give our thoughts, we do have to move on to a few messages. You know, the ones that oil the tracks,
keep the lights on.
The axles, keeps the lights on here in the Paranormal Express.
Keeps the firemen employed.
Yes.
Is this a coal train? Do we know?
Yes. Yeah. We have a locomotive. Yes.
Okay.
A few.
A few.
So we'll be right back after these messages filter through. Again, thank you for joining us aboard the Paranormal Express. Good evening, everybody. Welcome back. We are still aboard the Paranormal Express. Now, before the break, if you were here for it, Jake told us a very nice little paranormal ghost story, as opposed to non-paranormal ghost story.
I like that the title of it was just Ghost Train, though.
Yeah. Titled Ghost Train, about a spectral train in... What was the name of the town?
Medicine Hat.
Medicine Hat,
Alberta, Canada.
In Alberta. Let me see if that's a real... yeah, it is a city in Alberta, Canada.
Yeah.
Not to be confused with
the
Cyprus.
two
Medicine
trains
Hat.
that ended up crashing into each other at the end were the Spokane Flyer and the Lethbridge passenger train. Could see if this is actually a historical thing or not.
You said this Spokane Flyer?
Yes.
They're
S-P-O-K-N-E.
an ice hockey team.
Ah.
Interesting. I don't like doing the research on the fly, but this is interesting to think about. But
Yeah. Anyway.
I feel like that would have... Spokane Flyer train. Let's see. This music almost reminds me of GoldenEye. Well, there's the Spokane International Railroad that goes between Washington and the Canadian Pacific Railway.
Does it go anywhere in Alberta? Yeah, I mean, we don't need to do
Great
this
Northern.
anyway. We can.
And then Alberta's Ghost Train comes up as well.
Okay. We can move on to
But
other
it doesn't seem
ghost
like
stuff.
it would actually be an actual train, unless I did some more digging. But
Yeah.
considering we have like no date or anything, yeah, there's
It
not
is a
much to
ghost
really
story,
go off
so
of. Yeah.
could have been built up from other, local tidbits
course, yeah.
things.
And of course, the most interesting thing about stories such as that is that as it's told word of mouth before actually being recorded, lots of things happen to it. So,
Yeah, seems like the guy who recorded it was S.E. Schlosser.
is that picked up?
Oh, wait, you opening your...
Yeah. Okay. So, are we gonna go on to another ghost story, or
We can, unless you want to keep talking about that, your thoughts on it.
um?
You could look up CPR line. That's the line he worked on.
Yeah, that did show up when I was looking that up. But
yeah.
interesting that. So Ghost Train veered off, and then at the very end,
It usually veered off, yeah. Every
Yeah.
time this guy was on it. But,
this time it actually crashed into another locomotive.
yeah.
Oh, it had derailed.
Yeah.
Head-on collision. Wow. So there was a ghost train, but then after the fact, there's an accident that might have sparked what you would have thought would be the start of a ghost train, because usually ghost stories start with this accident happened. This is almost some X-Files stuff where you get a premonition. Is my favorite word for that. A premonition of the idea that it could happen, and then it does. But like the idea that a premonition is usually in somebody's head or a dream or something, but the fact that it's actually an event carried out by non-corporeal entities, that's interesting. Throwing a lot of big words into this stuff. Non-corporeal. Dude, the words about the existence and as well as the lustrousness or like the opaqueness of something is very interesting. How we have really cool words for that. Anyway, you might be hearing that a lot when we talk about ghosts.
I always think of non-corporeal being like similar or the same thing as like non-physical, I guess, would be the basic way of putting it. But I was trying to think of another word, and I can't think of it. It's like a science word for physical. Something being tangible.
Tangible.
That's the word I was trying to think of.
Which is an idea, but
like
not non-corporeal, no material body.
This wall in this train compartment is
very tangible. Yes, there it is.
Or is it?
Ooh. But yeah, so very interesting. It does suck that we don't have much to go off of as far as where it might have came from, besides that we know the author.
A few of the other ones are somewhat historical. One of them very historical.
Yeah. I think I want to go over my story.
Sure.
And then we'll switch back and forth, even though I only really have the one.
That's fine.
So I don't know if anybody's heard of the ghosts of San Antonio's train tracks. Basically, to preface it, there's no little nice narrative story about this. I'm just going to go off of what I know of it. So someplace between the 30s and 40s, there's a legitimate news article talking about an update on the accident dated December 2nd, 1938. A bus was trapped over the crossing of a train track in the snow and unable to move. A locomotive had struck it at a high speed because it had no chance to brake, one because of the cold temperatures, the low visibility of the storm, and it killed everybody on the bus, which was 10 students and the bus driver itself, themselves. Now, what happens of the paranormal that happens in the area is it's believed that you can either see the spirits of children, there's been reports of people hearing the collision of the train and the bus, a loud thunderous crash, screeching of tires, the blowing of a whistle, with nothing being there. But the biggest one is people would attempt this experiment in which they would park their car on the crossing where the bus might have been, put it in neutral, and let it sit, and eventually the car would begin to roll off the tracks. And then it became believed in the story that it's actually the children that had died there protecting other people and stopping them from dying by being stuck on the tracks, so they would push them. Some people would even lace the trunk with baby powder or salt so that they could see little handprints. So, of course, unfortunately, there's lots of logical explanations. First one being the actual track crossing has a slope to it now with new pavings and everything. Maybe back then, of course, it wasn't. But now there's ramps to get over the tracks and everything that when a car is put in the neutral, it will eventually start to roll off by itself. And most of those baby powder or powder flour tests for the handprints are actually the owners of the vehicle's handprints, just because you don't realize how much you leave on your car handprint wise until it gets dirty like that, which reminds me of the giant stain I have at the back of my car. But
wasn't there another thing of like this incident supposedly didn't even happen? Like I don't know if you said where this was supposedly happened. It was in somewhere in Texas, right? San Antonio?
Yeah, it was in San Antonio.
But supposedly it didn't happen in San Antonio. It actually happened in like Utah somewhere. I thought we saw that the other day.
There's something about that, yes.
Okay.
On December 1st of 1938, that was a very similar story, where in Salt Lake City, Utah, the same thing had happened. a 50-car freight train came hurling at a bus. And so I don't know why people are adopting it into that. But
I got internet again.
Okay, very good.
I was saying oh no because I lost the connection to the website I wanted to look at.
Thank goodness we alerted the conductor during the break,
Yeah.
because that is definitely necessary for this. So that's basically the gist of that. There is some photographic evidence of actual manifestations of spirits at the trains. As realistic as they can be,
Mhm.
This one I'm looking at currently just looks like a smudge on the screen. That's green. Definitely could have been done in post. That's the
We'll do it in
difficulty
post.
with digital media showing that stuff. I'm much more fascinated when ghost photos are taken with film. But even then, there's so many things that can happen. There could be complications with the film itself for processing. I mean, the way it's made nowadays, but very interesting stuff otherwise. So that's the San Antonio Haunted Tracts.
Okay. So, should I go into the next thing I
Yeah,
have
sure.
on the list?
Go ahead. What do you got now?
Okay. Well, I don't have like you said, I don't have another narration thing for this. Because it's mostly just a handful of accounts, I guess. I wish I had like an actual written account for this. It'd be interesting. But one of our presidents has a ghost story. He's also our president who is the most aligned with death. Abraham Lincoln.
Oh, yeah.
There's so much death surrounds him.
Mm-hmm.
It's very interesting. But he has a ghost train story. His funeral train, in fact, is a ghost train. So the basic account for this train is that, at least the ghostly part of it, is that people see on the route that his train went from Washington, D.C. to Springfield, Illinois, where he was from. They see this train in all black with, like, it's almost tattered, but I think it was meant to be, what are they called when you have, like, ribbons that are, like, stringed ribbons that just flail about to make movement?
Streamers?
Streamers, yes.
Yeah.
It has, like, black streamers on it, so it makes it look kind of tattered and ghostly. But I don't think they were going for that. It was just a funeral train.
Almost like the sails of a ghost ship. Kind of like that idea.
But it's on a train. And this train is, of course, pulling a few dead bodies. Lincoln's and his 12-year-old son, who died shortly before him.
When you say pulling, are they like in a casket in a cart that's doing it? Okay.
Yeah, they're in their caskets.
When you say just pulling,
they're in a cart like us.
Yeah.
In a little room, And actually, Lincoln's is supposedly, according to the accounts of this train, is surrounded by Union soldiers who are guarding his dead body.
Okay.
But one of the accounts for these soldiers, when they look out the window, all they see is the face of a skeleton.
Interesting.
Yeah. And this actually sort of, one of the accounts that I read that I wish I could have found on here, so I could have read it verbatim, but was about how this train was tugging him, pulling him to his grave.
Yeah.
And they sort of made an allusion to a psychopomp, like we mentioned earlier. These trains they ferry the dead.
Yeah.
Some of these trains, and there's another one on this list that is supposedly ferries the dead.
Yeah. There seems to be the idea of, yes, once vehicles became more popular, the idea that being ferried to
The afterlife.
The afterlife is done through a vehicle instead of just the idea of just ascension, like your soul just flies away.
Yeah.
Which is more common in Christianity. Christianity doesn't necessarily
The rapture.
Like the rapture, yes.
Yeah.
Christianity doesn't necessarily have a vessel to go besides, like Jesus himself maybe ushering you or pulling you along, taking you.
Or the chariot.
Yeah. Also, yes, that's true as well.
I forget who drives the chariot, but yeah, the chariot.
Yeah.
With, who's it, Elijah?
Mm-hmm.
Or Elijah?
Yeah.
I forget what my grandfather used to say about that.
But that is bizarre to think about. Just imagine, just out in the desert road, and you just see this
And
this
a dark
train-
desert highway.
Yeah, on a dark desert highway. Yeah.
Cool wind in my hair.
Just this, because imagine they said the train was like black and shadowy, right?
Yeah, because it's a funeral train.
Yeah.
So they painted it black and stuff.
Okay, I didn't know if it was just like painted black or if it actually had a paranormal black to it, because that's what I think.
Maybe
of.
both, but this train was definitely black because it was a funeral procession thing.
I've
It
never
stopped
seen-
on the way. It stopped in so many different towns along the way because this was a president's death.
Yeah.
He was assassinated too.
Mm-hmm.
And he was probably, I would think he would be very well beloved at the time by most people, even in the
Yeah.
South. Maybe not by everyone in the South, obviously, but I think he would by a lot of those people, because he brought an end to the fighting that lasted for 4 years, which is one of the bloodiest conflicts we have ever been in. And he
Yeah.
ended it.
Yeah. Ended it in unfortunately, what some people would find controversial. But I mean, everything about that war was just something else, and that is a topic we could get into.
Civil
later.
War ghosts and stuff.
Yeah, like
There's a lot of those.
Gettysburg itself, of course.
Yes, there's
has
a lot with Gettysburg.
tons of that, because that was the deadliest battle
Yes.
of that entire war. And there's tons of stuff about that we could definitely get into. But that is fascinating to think about.
Yeah. The procession, the sightings of this train happen. They always happen in April, and I think specifically it's like on the 21st of April,
Yeah.
which is when his procession happened.
Okay.
It left Washington on April 21st, 1865,
Yeah.
on a 12-day journey,
Because his assassination was the 15th of
Yeah.
April. Okay.
and it stopped in 12 major cities and had ceremonies in each one. I have another thing about this, which actually this I could read. It's pretty small. It's from Ghosts of Albany, which is, I guess, part of the way they went. Which this may have
Yeah.
had the thing I wanted to actually read. This is also by S.E. Schlosser.
Oh, there you go. Wow.
Yeah. Abraham Lincoln's death train has been reported inside New York City limits, even inside Grand Central Station, though it did not exist at the time. Before there was Grand Central Station, there was rail tracks on 4th or Park Avenue. In April 1865, Abraham Lincoln's body began a funeral journey from Washington, D.C. via New York City to his hometown of Springfield, Illinois. Ever since then, in various parts of the nation, the train has been spotted towards dusk on the day it journeyed along so far. Since then, a supernatural version has been running ever since. Some people see a steam train moving slowly away, and with it goes the darkness, the chill, and the clouds that obscure the moon. Others claim that they can see inside the train a crew of skeletons. Halfway back in the train is Lincoln's coffin, surrounded by the crew of blue-coated skeletons. Or the train is simply a blur. It has been reportedly seen between 21st Street and all the way up to Albany over the original path of the New York Central Railroad. Wherever the train passes, the clocks become 6 minutes late. That's basically it. The last thing is just something about S.E. Schlosser.
It's very bizarre. I'm actually looking at photos of the
train
right now.
Yeah, I see one right here. It has his picture on the front of it.
Yeah, it's like a museum setup for it.
Yeah, because they did hold ceremonies.
But it's not as creepy looking as I expected it to be.
It's an
It's
old
got a lot of
locomotive.
red accents to it.
Yes,
You know,
this isn't in
which is
color.
definitely like powerful. It's supposed to look prominent, and definitely something worthy of bringing a very influential man to his grave.
Yeah. For sure.
Almost like, yeah, because I mean, since the dawn of time, we've been ritualistic and respecting our dead in certain ways,
Mhm.
and it's very fascinating to see how that changes over time. Not gonna lie, though, I think our train's a little cooler, but still very interesting stuff. Yes.
Yeah.
So
Do you have another one?
I don't think I do currently.
Do you want to take one of the ones from the...
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Let's do the Silver Arrow. Okay, so this
Okay.
is a story about the Stockholm Metro.
That's the other one that ferries the dead.
Yes. So, apparently, there's this poltergeist activity on locomotives. It began around 1965, according to a man named Christopher Sandahl, the director of the oh boy,
Yes, you're gonna struggle with-
Sparvaxmuset. It's Swedish, so the Tramway Museum purchased 8 unpainted aluminum train cars to add to its fleet. This bare aluminum train, which could be more cheaply made than the standard green ones that were running at the Metro, performed. They wanted to see how it performed as a cost-effective option. Basic legend is if you got on board this, what they called the Silver Arrow, because of its silver shape being bare and not painted as the other ones were. You didn't get taken to any station. You just traveled and traveled and traveled and never got out, apparently. A Swedish ethnologist and urban legend scholar, Bengt af Klintberg, wrote about the Silverpilen, which is a book about it. The rat in the pizza.
Pillen?
So apparently this is definitely a common urban legend that seems to be very influential in other works, because he wrote
At
a
least
book.
in Stockholm and Sweden.
Yeah,
in
at least in
general, yeah.
Stockholm. That's what so, or around Sweden in general. Like, it made appearances in different books and published works. People working for the museum noticed lots of paranormal activity. Even younger people, they say, who haven't, of course, since 1965, still notice things and talk about it, even after its decommissioning in 1996, apparently.
Yeah, I saw that they put the carts in a few different places. One of them was training Metro police.
Yeah.
Had to deal with non-paranormal Metro policing.
It actually is funny because it reminds me, just by chance, that it is Swedish, and this idea of a extra-dimensional space that is endless. It reminds me of the SCP for the IKEA that's never ending.
Yeah.
So it's an accidental existence of an IKEA that once you enter, you can never leave.
Yes.
Because it just goes on.
I feel like that one's just kind of comedic.
It is comedic, yes, because sometimes it feels like that when you're in an IKEA, and you're accidentally on the 4th floor when you should be on the 2nd floor or whatever, and then you see the Swedish meatball place like for the 4th time.
Yeah.
Interestingly enough, though, Klintberg himself says, though, he denies that there's actual strange happenings with it.
It's interesting that it says that they once you get on, you can never leave.
Yeah.
Because that reminds me. I mean, there's a lot of ghost stuff like that.
Yeah.
Where they trap you. But probably more famously and probably more well known, that's how the Flying Dutchman works.
Yeah.
In the Pirates of the Caribbean movies, at least.
Yeah, because it's it's a curse to be there.
Yes.
And part of the curse's punishment is to be forever a crewmate upon that, which actually, I mean, if you want to segue into that
Well,
one.
I mean, I have one more ghost train, actually.
Okay, might as well.
But I don't know. This one, I guess we could do this one. I don't really have much. I don't know much about this one. I didn't really look into it too much. Supposedly, it's a ghost train that haunts a small Saskatchewan community. That's the title of this article. It's a Saskatchewan town called St. Louis, which confused me because I thought it had to do with, the famous American city, but it's not. It's Saskatchewan. It's a small village of 450 people. But this legend dates back a century, apparently. And I don't know the exact story here, but I think this little article tells it. Just outside the small village.
Wait.
Okay.
Do you see the time? It's almost time. You have to get off at this next stop, you listener, right now. The conductor will be
coming.
around soon. Oh, no. You don't have the proper ticket, as you couldn't tell.
Only ghosts can stay.
And of course, you are of the flesh currently. So, we must get you off. Now, of course, you can always join us again at the same time. But until then,
You can find us elsewhere on Twitter at paranormal_EXP, Paranormal Express, and on YouTube, a similar name, Paranormal Express. There is a little icon with the words written there, as well as a little train with ghost smoke coming out of it.
very good. Yes.
There's another one, so, we're not the only Paranormal Express, apparently. This bastard.
All right. Good. Good. Now, please go. Hurry now.
Get out of here.
We're about to stop.